Hey everybody, and welcome to Inside Quest. We're the power repository for your mind. Our goal is to bring on amazing people who can add another doc to your stock of successful secrets. And if you're looking to cram your utility belt full of useful skills, there's no better guest than the man joining us today. He's a former stage hypnotist who is obsessed with the power of superhero comics. Not afraid to work 18 hours a day in service of his dreams, but still makes time for cartoons. This man had me at hello. A big believer that only action matters, in college he pushed himself to student body president through sheer force of will twice and started building his first company before he'd even graduated. Actions that hinted at the drive that would ultimately make his former company one of the most recognizable names in technology. He holds a BA from UCSB and a JD MBA from Pepperdine, but he'll be the first to tell you that he didn't attend many classes. Why? He was too busy building his empire. He's a prolific content generator who contributes frequently to Forbes, The Wall Street Journal, and Business Insider. He's published so many amazing videos and articles, in fact, that consuming all of his content should automatically qualify as an MBA, in my opinion. And as if that wasn't enough, he turned his startup into one of the most visited websites on the planet with 50 million registered users, a company which he ultimately sold to Intuit. Please help me in welcoming the creator and host of Startups Uncensored, the longest running and most widely attended technology gathering in Southern California, the man the LA Business Journal named one of the most admired CEOs in Los Angeles, the founder and former CEO of DocStock, Jason Nazar.
Thanks.
Jason, welcome.
Wow. Thank you.
For sure, man. It's a pleasure to have you on the show.
After an intro like that, there's nowhere to go but down.
I don't know.
I think I should just leave right now.
I think you'll be okay. Your content is freakish. There's so much of it. I was telling you before we started. So my whole thing is, okay, I'm going to watch everything this person's ever done. I'm going to read their articles.
Sorry.
Trying to get through yours, I was like, okay, this not only is the content amazing, but there's just a volume of content that I am unprepared to meet. Like it was incredible, man. Congratulations. Talk about consistency, delivering unique points. You don't repeat yourself. Really, really inspiring. It's an honor to have you on.
Thank you so much.
For
Thank you
sure.
so much. By the way, this is by far like the happiest and best looking audience I've ever seen in my life. You know, when you walk into your office, they made me do push-ups just to get my, to be more healthy. I didn't even feel fit enough to walk into this office.
That's
like
hilarious.
I needed to go to the gym for a couple hours before I could show up here.
The funny thing is we actually don't consider ourselves a health and fitness company. Our goal was to give people like cakes and pies and candies and pizza and all the things that they want to eat and just make it good for them. So hopefully you won't have to do push-ups or sit-ups, because I know I hate doing them. So if we can get you away from that, it would be a pleasure.
Yeah.
But speaking of getting a superhero physique, the thing that I want to talk to you about is superheroes.
Yes.
So
favorite topic.
yeah, like in going through all of your stuff, I was really blown away by how sincere you are with that. So it's something that it's really meaningful to me, but you take it to like a whole nother level. So at DocStock, you guys had an entire wall with big superheroes, and you made people pick their superhero,
Yes.
if I'm not mistaken, and then
Absolutely,
tell the whole
yeah.
company which one they'd picked.
Yes.
Why was that powerful?
It was our culture frame of reference at our company. So I had written a blog post many years ago called 10 Lessons Startups Can Learn from Superheroes. And the idea is that you can use superheroes as a metaphor for what you try to achieve in a private company. So, for example, superheroes are the best at what they do. They always get the job done. They're powerful individually, but they're more powerful in teams. And they always try to achieve amazing feats. And I just thought that those were really beautiful lessons. And there were more of them, but beautiful lessons for what you should try to do in a private company. Right? If you're going to do something amazing at the biggest level possible. And so we took this idea that every employee we hired in the company, we would have them pick a superhero they are and explain why. And it was just it was an icebreaker, just an easy way to relate to somebody on a goofy level. But B, it's kind of set the tone that, this is a place where we value folks that have special talents, and that we're here together to do something really big and important. And yeah, we had this huge mural in our office of who everybody's superhero was. We actually had street signs all throughout our office in Santa Monica with names of different superheroes, right? So Clark Kent or Professor X, right, or Smallville, whatever it was.
Oh, it's really cool. So I know your favorite superhero, at least as publicly stated, and I don't know if it changes over time, but is Superman, yes?
I like Superman because it's an immigrant story, right? I think it really embodies the values of the U.S., which is it's a real human immigrant story, right? And that there's an immigrant that comes to our country or our planet and then adopts our culture and wants to look out and protect for people.
So talk to me about the immigrant thing. I have a guess as to why that's important to you, but why an immigrant story? Why is that so meaningful to you?
As part of an entrepreneurial journey, right? It's this idea, and it's, again, whether you're an entrepreneur or any passion that you have in life, it's that you get to shape your destiny, right? That your story really gets to be what you choose it to be, and that something that doesn't exist in the present can exist in the future. And I would say that's one of the most powerful themes in all of life or business or whatever, is that you get to change your condition. And I think what's so appealing about the immigrant story, the entrepreneur story, is that you start at a certain place and your story is X. But then you change that story, right? So, my dad came to this country in the 1950s, like Persian Jewish guy, came here with almost no money. And he built a really successful life. And, I'm the youngest of 4 kids and provided for all of us. And he changed his story. And I think it's that idea that you can build a better life for yourself, that wherever you start in life, you can change that condition, that you can make your life what you want it to be, and not just for your own gain, but to help and inspire other people is really powerful.
There's so many powerful things in what you just said. I want to try and break them down and go one by one. So you were student body president twice at both universities that you went to. Compared to creating one of the largest websites on the planet or writing for Forbes magazine, like it doesn't seem like it would make the list. But talk to us about truly the superhuman feat that you did to get elected.
To get elected the first time was interesting because I was never the popular guy by any means. In high school, I had my close set of friends and I played basketball, but I could not get a girl to save my life. Literally, if you gave me $10 million, I would have stayed a virgin until I was 20 years old. It would not have made a difference. And even in college, I kind of felt out of place. I wasn't a partier, and I went to CSB. There were 2 unique things that I did that helped me end up winning the election. The first is I just went all in. I went all in. I stopped going to class. I spent every day, all day long, meeting with groups and campaigning and passing out flyers. I made a decision that I was going to work harder at that than I had at anything I had in many years. And it actually felt good because I had kind of been coasting in college. It was just kind of easy. And so going all in and just making the decision that no matter what it takes, I'm going to work as hard as I possibly can. The second is that what you'll find is whether you run a company or whether it's just day-to-day hobbies, a lot of achieving things in life is actually being able to get other people to do things for you, right? If you look at some of the most successful people, they actually don't have any hard specific skills. It's not like they do any one thing so amazingly. If you look at what a producer in a movie does, the producer doesn't have the skills to act, they don't direct, they don't edit, they can't do the sound, but they just bring everybody together. And what they have is they have people skills. And I think what's really unfortunate is in our educational system is we don't teach more of soft skills of just how to interact with people, how to be persuasive, how to be charismatic, how to negotiate. And it sounds so weird, right? Could you imagine a high school class on persuasion or charisma? It would seem so weird. Yet those are the skills that are going to really help us get far in life. When you go to interview for a job, your resume gets you so far, but then it's how you interact right there, the impression that you leave. And so I think what I did well at 20 years old that I've tried to cultivate is I was good at getting a lot of other people to do things for me.
Yeah, going back to that notion of being all in, you talk a lot about that in some of your talks. You make that like a standalone point, right? Find something you really want to do and be all in. And you said, you have a great quote here, the only variable you can really control in life is your work ethic. All effort is the same. It takes the same effort to plan a party as it does to change the world. I've put 2 quotes together, but thematically they really feel right to me. That's such a powerful strategy. How did you come to that? Like, what made you realize that? Because looking at your career, that defines the scale at which you've been able to accomplish. Because so much of it is just, when I look at building DocStock and starting to think of it as you're still in school, stopping doing class to get elected and handing out flyers for hours and hours and hours, going around to all these student groups, 12 hours a day, you said. You were going around to student groups, handing out flyers, just the sheer force of will it would take to put out the volume of content that you do. You don't repeat yourself. It's all unique, individual content designed to help these other people. How did you come to that, like, to embody it so profoundly?
One of the things I really sincerely believe is this idea that all effort is equal. And so if we go outside right now and start a lemonade stand, and we spend 10 hours a day setting up that lemonade stand, it's the same effort, it's the same energy of output that it's going to take to build $1 billion business, or to create a charity that helps feed millions of people, or to invent some process or drug that could save thousands of lives. It's a different skill set, it's a different expertise. But I think sometimes people look at folks that have accomplished a lot in life, and it just seems like, wow, there's such a divide. But what you realize is, in many cases, what that person did is they just applied their effort towards something that could have had a larger gain if it works. And so if you're going to start a business, instead of thinking small, think as big as possible to start, because the effort's going to be the same, right? When I started DocStock, I got in the office every day at 10, and I left usually at 2 or 3 a.m. And I did that for a year straight. I slept most of the day on Saturdays, and then on Sundays I worked a half day. And it was out of whack, and it was crazy, and I was 27 and I wasn't married, so I had the opportunity to do it. But I made a decision that I was never going to look back and say I could have given it more. Like, there were so many things that could already go wrong. Like, I could be making wrong decisions, the market could be tough, people may not like the product, but I was never going to look back and say, well, this failed because we just didn't work hard enough. And I think with time and experience, you learn how to work smarter and maybe more balanced. But I still have that philosophy that if you accept that somebody can work harder than you, then you just haven't committed enough to winning.
Wow, that's awesome. I love that. You've written a really powerful article, The 20 Things 20-Year-Olds Don't Get. Really great article. I know it went all over the internet. There seems to truly be a generational gap. But one thing that I find fascinating about you is that you look at the differences in people through, I'm sort of conflating a few things that you've said, but I hope you'll agree that they make sense together. That the generational gap is in part essentially from a Darwinian evolutionary perspective, almost like, do you know epigenetics?
A little, not much.
Okay, so genetics says that there's a code, and that's just how your life is going to be. It's basically foretold, right? So if you have markers for cancer, you're going to get cancer, and that's just going to be that. Epigenetics says that's just predisposition. How you live your life has way more influence over how those genes are expressed than just the fact that you have those genes. I find that the same is true of personality. So I use epigenetics in personality just because no one's come up with a word that I know of for that, other than maybe evolutionary psychology, but that doesn't really get at the generational divide. Talk to me about the difference between your worldview and your father's worldview, because it is utterly fascinating.
So there's a piece I wrote and a talk I did called Owners versus CEOs, right? So the lessons I learned from my dad versus lessons I learned from VCs. And so, for example, owners, people that own their own business and are usually businesses of one, the kind of mantras that they think about is like, you have to take care of everything. You have to watch every penny. Whereas CEOs and folks that are growing to scale companies, the biggest advice I ever got from early on was, your job as a CEO is actually to do nothing. Which sounds kind of crazy, but what the person was telling me was, if you're responsible for any functional area in your product, in your company, product, marketing, sales, then you're the bottleneck, right? So you've got to be the chief cheerleader, you've got to be the chief recruiter, you've got to be the chief fundraiser, but the actual functional details you got to leave to other people, which is such a different philosophy from how an owner thinks. And to the point of what you were saying is, I found that both paradigms have value, and you just need to know when to pick and choose how to be which one. There's a really cool quote one of my best friends told me when I was young. I think he came up with it. He's a very prophetic guy. And he said, we were like 19 years old, and he said, you can do anything you want in life, Jason, as long as you're willing to deal with the consequences of those decisions. And if you think about it, it's just one of the most powerful things I ever heard, because I think a lot of times in life we feel like, well, I could never have that experience. I could never do that. Or you have like some secret hope and desire of something that you want to do in life that you hold on to, right? Like if I were just to ask you, I mean, you're probably living it, but even for you, like just very quietly, like what's something secretly that you've always wished in life that you could do, but that you're just really scared to do, right? Whatever it is. But like, what's the most exciting thing you can imagine doing in life that you're just kind of scared to do?
I'm going to give you a real answer, just
please.
so that we can root it. I actually move towards the things that scare the shit out of me. So I would be lying if I said I had a big dream that I'm not chasing out of fear. So this show, for instance, people look at it and think that, oh, I must be really comfortable in front of people. I must be comfortable in front of the camera, when in fact it is because I didn't want to be in front of the camera, because I wanted to hide in the background. I knew that it was just for that reason, like I had to do it. My thing is people should throw themselves into emotional danger, like out and out emotional danger, whatever you've got going on in your life, because my hypothesis goes like this. Maybe it's dumb to move so aggressively towards your fears as I do, maybe. But I know there's nothing in my life that's a result because I'm afraid of trying.
Yeah. And the idea that I wouldn't try something or wouldn't do it because it's scary or hard, or that you let one of those days go to waste, that feels like the biggest shame to me. You know, so this idea that you can do anything in life as long as you're willing to deal with the consequences of the decision is actually really powerful. The anxiety and the worry about them are often much worse than when you're actually just in it, right? So as a business owner, you always worry about like, what if things go wrong?
Right.
You know, you spend a lot of your headspace just planning and thinking for, well, what if this doesn't work out? What if I can't make payroll? What if I got to let people go? What if, you know, the folks on my team think less of me? What if the business isn't going to grow as fast as it does before? And you put this mental energy towards it. Yet, those things invariably happen anyway. And then you're in it and you realize, oh, now that I'm in it, it's actually easier to deal with it. Like when you're just in the shit, when you're in the trench, you don't have the option to worry about what's going to happen next. You just kind of have to put your head down and push through it.
Right. Slightly different variation on what you were just saying, but you have a quote, sometimes you think too much. And that's a big problem that holds a lot of entrepreneurs back because they get themselves in the psychological conundrum of being afraid of whatever it is that they're about to do, so they don't act, or they think they don't have something that they need.
Your belief in yourself has to supersede a situation. So, right, there's the quote that you hear all like people, skeptics say, which is, I'll believe it when I see it. I flip that quote around, which is, you'll see it when you believe it. You know, and the idea is that you sometimes have to have faith in yourself in life and see a situation when there's no external proof for it, when there's no validation, and your own belief has to supersede the fact that there's no outside variables or indication that you can have something or do something. But that belief in yourself can be so powerful that you make it your reality. The most intoxicating, captivating, magnetic quality in any human being is certainty. If you can have enough certainty in an outcome, people will assume your belief and they will want to follow you. And that's really powerful. And then when you combine that with, you know, a really meaningful mission and values of integrity, so take Quest and, you know, trying to help people lead healthier lives and do it in a way that they enjoy it, you know, and you combine that with the certainty of, you know, we are going to make this a worldwide, you know, phenomena. You know, people will assume your certainty and your belief in that outcome and they'll make it their own. And that's what's really powerful and that's what's really special.
I love that. And when I first came across it, doing the research on you, I can see in you a person who codifies their experience. And then you talk really interestingly about evolution, the evolution of evolution of psychology, which allows you to tap into some of these persuasive moments. So that's one that's incredibly powerful. What are some other, and by that one I mean that projecting confidence, and I think people are drawn to that massively. What are some other elements that you can use to be more persuasive?
So a couple that stand out as maybe counterintuitive, right? The most persuasive person in any situation is not the person with the most power. It's the person with the most flexibility. So even if you're the person that has the power and control, let's say you have more money, you're the employer, right? It's the person that's willing to try the most different set of behaviors that often achieves their outcome. Like I was watching this video of Bruce Lee, it's just incredible. And he talks about his fighting style to be like water, that water is formless, but it forms the shape of anything that's around. So it's like the most powerful element because no matter, like you can take the rock that breaks the water, but the water will just form around it and break it down over time. So that's one for persuasion. Obviously, definitely the idea of certainty. Another kind of interesting trick is the idea of, you talked about this evolutionary premise behind it, the principle of reciprocity. And there's a great book by Robert Cialdini about this, but when I do something for you, you actually feel really compelled to do something back for me. And that's often why you'll see, like, when Hare Krishnas are asking for a donation, they'll give you a flower. Like, it is scientifically proven that if you accept that flower, like the odds that you're going to give that person $1 go up by like 5 to 10x. And by doing gestures for people in advance, without necessarily expecting anything back immediately, you can leverage that disproportionately to your favor. So the best example I can give you is I would do these dinners at DocStock, where I would host a dinner for about 15 different business people. A lot of times I wouldn't even pay for it. I would get a lawyer or an accounting firm to pay for this dinner. And so let's say I wanted to do a deal with you, right? And you don't know me very well. You know, it'd be hard to get on your radar, or you wouldn't be paying attention to it or whatever, right? And I invite you to this dinner that I don't pay for, I put some time into. But there's just this context, and we break bread and and you have a good time and you meet some other cool people. And now because I've done this little gesture for you, right? This little gesture that really didn't take much time or money on my side, when I call you and I say, hey, I was thinking about this deal we could do together, you're going to now disproportionately go out of your way to see about making something happen, right? And so one of the most powerful traits of persuasion is to do little gestures for other people, and then you can actually disproportionately get a return back in your favor. So that's another, right, really big one.
Right. I wanted him to talk about this for one very clear reason. He thinks about these concepts as executable programs, we'll call it, right? So if the brain is hardware and the way that you think is software, and you can get these updates, these additional nuggets, software programs that you can run, he's conceptualizing this stuff and bringing it in, and then he executes on it on a business level. He obviously doesn't have time to go into the details of everything now, but I hope you were listening to the few nuggets that he just threw out.
I'll give you, I remember the example. Yeah, and you're right. I think of this as kind of like life hacking. I would definitely recommend reading the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. And it seems antiquated at first, and it can seem a little campy. I will, like, the single biggest thing that you can do to immediately give people a good impression of you is to get in the habit of constantly complimenting. And you can do this in a way where you're not a sycophant, right? You just have to be honest where you say something that you mean. And since I got to the office, I probably gave like a dozen compliments, like to one of your producers, oh, I like your glasses, right? Or, oh, you're doing a really good job with the show, or, oh, this is a really great set, or, oh, I really like your office. And people don't even think about it, but you just instantly have a good feeling about that person. And the other thing is to flip the script on what you're going to give the compliment for. So you take the really attractive person who's used to getting compliments for being attractive, and you compliment them on their witty personality. Right? Or you take the person that may not get as many physical compliments, and you say, hey, I really like the way you look today, this outfit, da 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 da.
Yeah, it's it is really, and so these guys know I'm utterly fascinated with the notion of being a Jedi, and for me that means persuasion, literally being able to convince other people to do something great for them. You actually talk a lot about that.
What have you found? Like, what are some of the things that you find that make you or the people that you know really persuasive?
The technique that I use to great effect is to know more about that person than they know about themselves. So my goal is to create a sense in people that I can actually
Do you really
read
think you
their
know
mind.
more about the person themselves?
Yeah, a lot of times for sure.
Wow.
Because if you get to the operating system level, you don't need the specifics. So they know way more about the specifics of their life. Like take, for instance, they have a secret. I can't tell them what that secret is, the thing that they don't want to tell me, but I can see that they've got an emotional dark cloud and it's holding them back, stopping them from doing something. They're judging themselves about it. They don't believe that they deserve success and therefore they hold themselves back, right? To me, it's like astrology. Astrology is amazing because it takes all these things that you either fear about yourself or want to believe about yourself, and they tell you that they're true. So you're like, damn, I always was afraid that that was true, and oh yeah, of course, like those are all me. But you can't have such a narrow band of things apply to everybody, right? But if you word them and just you know what cold reading is, right? So it's what psychics use to make you feel like they understand something about you. So you find somebody, Amy, I just have this sense about, your weekend. You were out. You stayed up really late this Saturday, and it's like, okay, she laughed, so I know she did, right? But what I'm really doing is basing it on the fact she's got sunglasses on her head inside. That's already like warning sign one. She's young, probably spends her weekend doing hip things.
She's got glitter on her face.
You know what I mean? Exactly. So what got me thinking about that, honestly, in the beginning, it was a desire to control my own mind. So I felt like, okay, I experienced the world through my brain. I don't understand my brain, and my brain does things that lead me in directions that I end up not being happy with, so I better figure this out. So for me, it's really been a lifelong exploration of understanding myself. And as I did that and began to recognize pettiness, insecurity, just stupid systems that weren't helping me, because I could so honestly assess them within myself, I could then see them in other people, right? So I'll break it down to a really simple level. When you see somebody smile, it's an indication that they're happy, they're having fun, they're interested, whatever. So, but there are 1,000 tales that we give away. They aren't all based on expression. They could be how somebody interviews for a job, right? They could be word choice, clothing. But an easy way to break it down, people cannot help but reveal themselves if they are talking. So in interviews, I do two things. I talk and I let them talk. And I talk because I need to plant ideas in their head so that if I end up hiring them, that I've sort of built this way of thinking around, so that in the beginning I find that there's some conforming you have to do, whether it's telling people to pick their superhero and then they feel enculturated. But there's always things that I can bring up in an interview that will serve me well later. But then most importantly, I need to listen. So I need to hear the things that they bring up. I need to hear their cadence. I need to hear what means something to them, what questions do they ask, and then most importantly, if you can get them to lower their guard. Like I remember there was one interview we did and there was like 5 of us in the interview, and I could just tell this person's learned a defense mechanism. And they walk into an interview and she was a woman, and it was unfortunately just happened to be for the role she was applying for. There was like 5 guys and her. And she came in with just bravado and really masculine energy and was projecting her personality so big into the room. And I was like, I'm not seeing her, I'm seeing the tactic she uses to get ahead when she's just with guys. Yeah. So I asked everyone else to leave, and then it was a fundamentally different human being. And my goal was to get her to lower her defenses so I could see who she really is. And the surest way to do that, and you've talked a lot about this, very famous if you start researching this stuff, is mirroring people. Right? So if I'm having a conversation with somebody and I see them folding their arms, then I may fold my arms. So we're matching and mirroring, right? We're going back and forth. And you just create this, you get in sync with the person. And then you can sort of take them where you want them to go, which gets very, very interesting. So one thing that I try to do is reveal myself, right, as quickly as possible. And if you guys interviewed with me, you know that that's technique number 1. I'm just myself. So I say the things you wouldn't expect. I act in a way that people wouldn't expect, in the hope, because it's all authentic, in the hope that they will then lower their guard and we can see who they really are. But to me, like when you were talking about persuasion, I was like, this is a guy who gets like the most fundamental building block of business success. And there's really two things I think that you bring to a group like this or people watching at home that either want to be the best at what they do or they want to be an entrepreneur, is that the fundamental building block of understanding other people so that you can be persuasive. And look up his talks on that. They're phenomenal and worth every second of your time. And then the notion of the things within your own personality that you can control. And those two together, to me, are that's the fundamental building block. And going back to the things in my personality that I've intentionally changed through understanding the brain, through learning about persuasion.
What's the biggest thing in your personality you've intentionally changed? Like, what's the single biggest thing you feel like you've changed?
To believe that I can do anything I set my mind to. That for me was a game changer. Now, in that there's like all these subgroups of subtleties, and I'll run through a couple really quickly. That failing at something did not mean I was a failure. That just because I was dumb today didn't mean I had to be dumb tomorrow. And Carol Dweck sums up that. I didn't have the words for it at the time, unfortunately, but what she calls a fixed mindset versus a growth mindset. In switching over to a growth mindset, my entire world changed. Because then I could say, like the first episode of this show, you all think is, the one you think is the first episode is actually the second. The first one we buried in the fucking desert. That thing is never going to be seen ever because I was so bad. I was like literally embarrassed to my core. And my wife said to me, well, at least I know you'll get better. So it was like.
Is that why she started kissing you afterwards?
Yeah, right? So
you didn't give him a kiss on the first one. That's why you screwed up.
That was the problem. And that is something that we try to bake into the culture here is that. And I intentionally, it's getting harder now, and if I'm really honest, I have to admit, I make sure other people read resumes now. I still don't, somewhat because of the mythology of me spending so many years saying I don't read resumes.
A resume is a joke. The only thing that I've ever read in a resume is the headlines.
Tell them why, because you talk pretty powerfully about this.
I'll read 5 things, which is I'll read the headline, I'll read what your job title was to get a sense of if your previous experience match what the needs in the company are. And I'll take a look at what schools people went just to try to get a sense of what formal training, because it's exactly what you said. Like, you learn by having the other person talk. You don't learn by doing the talking. Sometimes you do the talking because you want to set an expectation or you want to set the context, or you want to create a rule. But if you want to get to things in life, learn how to talk to people about them. And if you can do that, so for example, in an interview, if you just get in a habit of talking a little bit less and asking a little bit more questions, what you will find is that the person doing the hiring is going to give you a color by number roadmap of what they want to hear to get the job. So if you simply ask a couple things like, what are you looking for most in a candidate? What kind of experience and background do you want to have? What are the technical skills that are most important? What do you have to have as far as somebody knowing that they're good fit in your culture? All right, someone's as self-aware as you may realize what's going on, but the vast majority of people doing the hiring are then going to go in their own mind, and they're actually going to go in a trance, which means they're just going to start talking, and they're going to stop paying attention to you. And they're going to say the exact things that if you just say back to them, they will say, I need to freaking hire this person. And it sounds crazy, and you think, well, I can't just say back what they just said to me, right? That's going to seem so shady. That's going to seem like I'm just here to manipulate them. Right. But that's exactly what they want to hear, right? If I tell you, I'm looking for somebody that has a couple years in DR experience and isn't going to get too, creative and focus on brand and really knows how to manage, our online media spend and to drive towards this kind of cost per acquisition. And the person then just says those things back to me. They take a second and maybe just say it in a slightly different way. And they say something like, I'm not really one of these creative guys that really focus on the cost per acquisition. I've done this for a couple years. In the past businesses, I've been able to get, a CPA of $15, and I feel really confident I could do in this case. I would be drooling, right? I'd be like, when can I hire you? Join me now. Join. And it's just such a simple discipline, but most people don't think to do it, right? And again, it's the overall habit of learning how to talk to people about them. If you can take a step back and learn to ask people things, they will reveal, you said it perfectly, they will reveal the secrets of the things that they want in life. And if you just reiterate those things back to them, you often can have everything you want in life and more in the process.
Yeah, that's a really, really powerful technique, and I'm surprised how few people do that, and I'm surprised that people can't think of their answers in context. So as a quick tutorial for anybody that wants to get a job, whatever your first answer is, that's what everybody else just said right before you, right? So I'll just help you guys out. Don't start there. For me, it should be a two-way street, right? You should be trying to figure me out as much as I'm trying to figure you out. It's way too important. You spend like 50% of your waking hours at your job. So if that's going to be true and you don't find a place you really want to work at and that you're really passionate about, you're committing suicide. So you guys should be poking and pushing as hard as the person is on you to find out if that's the kind of company that you really want to give yourself over to. And then that brings me to my next question, which is you say everyone should have a really big why. What's your why?
Anything big that you want to accomplish in life first starts with a why. So a lot of times we start with questions like what and how. But if you don't have a big why for whatever it is you're going after, you don't feel connected to it, and if you don't feel that it drives you, you end up using the what and the how as an excuse to not do that thing that you said you were going to do. Whereas if you have a big why, you always end up figuring out the what and the how. I'll tell you my why for the last 10 years, and I'll tell you what I think my why is going forward, right? My why at DocStock was I started this business when I was 27. And I saw a lot of other successful people, and the more I got to see successful people, the more I started to break down like, well, what's so special about them that I couldn't do? Right? I felt internally like, well, why can you build this business and I couldn't? Because I feel like I could do everything that you could. Right? And there's some hubris and ego in that for sure. And I think I needed the external validation for that. Like I believed that I could do it, right? But I needed a marker. Right? I needed to say, I'm going to create something that's going to be meaningful and valuable and successful. And I'm going to put it in front of a lot of people, and they're going to see that it was successful so that the world has the perception of me that I believe I have of myself. Right. Now, whether that's an honorable why or whether it's the best, I don't know. I mean, it's a very ego-driven why. Right? It's very much about validating my own sense of importance. My why today is a couple things. One is I want to have more fun in life. You know, the last 10 years of DocStock was very rewarding, both personally and financially, but I was often very stressed and a lot of times very solitary. And I wasn't really the happiest I've ever been in my life. The interesting thing about making money your goal is, you know, I had a binary event. Right? I didn't build a business where I built wealth along the way. I got paid a fair market salary as CEO, but in a venture business, you know, I started at 27. I didn't have any money, right? Any money I had, I put into DocStock. I had a bunch of student loans. And then one day, 9 years later, a bunch of money showed up in my bank account. And you look at it, and it's kind of like, huh. I'm no skinnier, I'm no better looking, I'm no happier, the rest of my life isn't different. There's just a number in my bank account with a bunch of digits in it. Right. Now I don't want to make it so simplistic because that number represents freedom, and there's a lot of things I get to do today that I didn't get to do before. And there's a lot of things I'll be able to provide for my family that I wouldn't be able to provide before. But I've always said that money is a magnifier. Whatever you are, it makes you more of that. If you're not happy, having money doesn't make you happy. And I wasn't unhappy in my last 10 years. I just wasn't light. I was maybe at like 65 to 70% of where I was most happy. And so now my biggest why is that whatever I do, I want to be really happy, right? So I look at the business that you've built and this team and this company, and honestly, I feel like it excites me. Like I think you're really doing something that makes you happy and you feel connected to mission-wise. And that's something I want to get in, and to do it with a group of people that you really love. That's my first why. And the second is that I want to build something big enough and meaningful that it can help a lot of people. And there's a component of financial success in there, but I fundamentally believe if you do something that helps enough people and that they really love it, there's just an abundance philosophy. You'll make so much money that you won't even need to worry about it.
That's a pretty fantastic why.
I don't know that any one why is better than the other. I just think you got to have that why. And the simple, most binary quality that I see in successful people versus not is that. Really, it's just simply that. And you see it, you know it. Like, you can spot it. You can see when somebody's got a why and they're driven and they're just going to push forward. And you can see when somebody doesn't. And I think folks that have a big why, you just know that, like, you're going to have tough days, you're going to have tough circumstances, but your why is going to be bigger than the external environment. Your why is going to be bigger than the context. And that's the simplest way I can say it is, your why has to be bigger than what's ever in front of you. Right? There's that awesome quote I love from the last Rocky movie, which is, it's not how hard you hit, it's how hard you can get hit and keep going. And similarly, I would say, like, it's not how difficult, like, the situation is, it's how big your motivation is to get to where you want to go. And if there's not that internal motivation to keep pushing you forward as things get hard, you just stop and you move on to do something else that's easier, or you do what's comfortable. You said something that I think is, like, so profound and prophetic, which is doing the things that scare you the most in life. I think a really cool way to lead life that I'm not doing now, and I'm trying to figure out how to do more of it, is just, like, blow your life up every 10 years and just do something completely different and crazy. Like, literally, just, like, put yourself in a completely new context and situation. And I'm not saying, like, go destroy your relationships with your family, but just, like, everything that you know how to do that's comfortable and easy and predictable, stop doing those things and start doing a new set of behaviors that are challenging, difficult, and scary. And to your point, if you just kind of habitually do that in life, you're probably going to find a lot of success eventually. You definitely won't be bored, and you'll probably have a more rich and rewarding life than the vast majority of us, right?
Yeah, that is utterly fascinating. And with that, Jason, I will thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely
Thanks,
incredible.
everybody. Thank you.
Guys, do yourselves a favor. Go to YouTube right now. Drop this man's name in. You will be rewarded with a treasure trove of brilliant content. It is amazing. It is so focused on the how. For me, it was an ongoing business education just to watch the stuff. It's incredible. It's no BS. He gets to the point. He gives you very, very usable information. So Jason Nazar is the man. You're going to want to check him out. Jason, where other than YouTube can they find you?
Forbes, Wall Street Journal, Business Insider. You can show up at my house. I live by Century City. Just knock on the door.
Nice. I hope you guys take him up on it. Guys, this is a weekly show. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe here. You can find me at Tom Bilyeu. And don't forget, this is available as a podcast, so you can go to iTunes and download it, listen to it in your car. I sound a lot better at 2x, so whatever you're doing, whether it's on YouTube, iTunes, Stitcher, I think Stitcher might let you go to 3, but I probably get a little unintelligible at that speed, or at least I hope. So until next time, guys, be legendary. And if you want to be part of our studio audience, by the way, we'd love to have you. So for free tickets, go to IQ Tapings on InsideQuest.com. You'll see there's a link there for IQ Tapings. Click that and click the Get Tickets page, and you guys will be able to join us here with this beautiful studio audience. So hopefully we will see you here. Until next time, guys, be legendary. Take care. My friend.
So great.
That was
Great job, man.
Thank you so much for being on the show.
Coming up next, Inside Questions.
Every guest we've had on this show, and surely every success story out there, there's long hours. At Duckstock, you were doing 10 to 2 and endless hours. But what sets your pace, and who sets your pace? And there's probably a healthy balance with working long hours, but how do you avoid a burnout, and how do you know, I guess, when you're getting there?
In the beginning of a company, I like to give this analogy. Like, in the first year of a company, the job of a founder is to be a sprinter. And you want to run as fast as you can and basically tell your team, you got to keep up with me. And the reason you do that in year 1 or year 2, however long it is because starting a business is like walking into quicksand. And there's no way to get out except, like, just massive force in a singular direction.